Hey guys, today on my channel I'm trying something a little new and going kind of informal. I just want to share with everyone my experiences with PTSD and how hard it's been to concentrate and just get through the day-to-day tasks with how difficult it can be to stay focused with this condition. So if you're interested in learning about the difficulties of concentrating with PTSD, stick around.
An idea.
An escape.
Ideas are bulletproof.
A lot of my videos have been pretty research-based as well as experience, but I really like to put a lot of facts and different educational things into my videos, but I just thought it would be kind of nice to get a little more informal with everyone and just share my experiences with things and how I've sort of learned to cope with it up till now. I've still got a long way to go, plenty of therapy still in the works, but I figured out some pretty decent ways in dealing with the condition so far. So to start off in just explaining what it's like to have difficulty concentrating with PTSD. It's apparently been mixed up with ADD and ADHD. Of course, the difference being that there's a trauma background with those who have difficulty concentrating with PTSD, and also the hypervigilance and the lack of concentration that comes with that tends to also happen when you're getting into a triggered state or getting into an anxiety state, which is also not so much like ADD or ADHD. So to just give a little taste of what it can be like on my worst days, like I can't stay focused on something pretty much at all. Like it feels like at all. It's probably like a minute at most I can keep my mind on one thing before it bounces to another thing. Even just like if I'm watching a show, I'm concentrating on the show. I'm watching it, like I'm hearing the words, I'm watching everything that's happening. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself like, oh, that conversation I had earlier, those things that I said, I don't know if I should have used those particular words, I'm not really sure. And oh, that spot on Richmond, that was really interesting, that person that was walking across the street and all those horns that honked to them, how did they manage that anxiety? And oh, I can't believe how I acted on that bus that other day. Oh, I really shouldn't have done that. I didn't even realize what was going on, and I feel like such an idiot. And oh yeah, there was that time when I was younger and I was sitting on the bus because I got kicked out of the house and that weird person was looking at me, and that was very uncomfortable. Oh yeah, and then there was that time that I was sitting in the bottom of Western just kind of bumming around waiting to be allowed to go home. Oh shit, I have a doctor's appointment, and oh my god, yeah, I've got to go do my dishes, and those need to get done, and gosh, I've been letting them sit there forever. And it bounces around constantly. And so in that sense, you can see where it seems like ADHD because you're all over the place, but it's also, as I'm saying, it's triggered from traumas. So this is super heightened when I'm outside, when I'm super anxious to be around people. I'm really hypervigilant about where are people coming from, where are they going to, are they looking at me, am I doing something wrong? How am I walking? How are my arms swimming? How are my arms swinging? Where can I go to if somebody comes and attacks me or tries to hurt me? Different things, and the mind just constantly bounces from all these different things while at the same time bouncing to like, oh, that conversation I had yesterday, and oh, that thing that happened 3 years ago, and oh, I have that thing to do over on my YouTube channel, I have the doctor's appointment, I have like, it's just all over the place. And it's actually, my introduction on my channel is probably a little bit of a good example of like where it's kind of like flipping channels. And when you get into that unmotivated depression that can come along with PTSD, that just makes it so much worse because when you're in that state, nothing seems to occupy your mind at all. So now you're depressed and all you want to do is be distracted from your pain and what you're going through, but nothing can keep your mind. And then add on the PTSD of not being able to like focus on anything, even things that would have usually kept your mind, like a video game or a book that you're usually okay to read. You just can't focus on it. As soon as you start to read a few words, then you start to think back to something else that's going on in your life or might happen even. I tend to actually have times where like my brain will go into storytelling, and it makes it so hard to focus. And I also noticed that this led me to think that I have a memory problem. And I was doing a little bit of reading, and even though I still didn't find very much about concentration, I saw a YouTube video where someone mentioned that the reason those with PTSD have memory issues isn't because they actually have like retention issues, like remembering things, but they're so hypervigilant and so focused on so many other things in their environment that they don't take the time to remember certain things because it's not within their capacity. So like I was getting off the bus and I remember standing on the bus, and then all of a sudden I was walking across the parking lot and I had a moment of, did I press the bar and open the doors on the bus and step off? Well, I must have, because I'm on the street now. But I literally did not have that chunk of memory of did I do that, because I was so, I can remember that moment. I was so hypervigilant about all the different people on the bus and how I'd really screwed up getting onto the bus that I just wanted off really, really bad. And it was so auto to get off the bus that my brain did not take the time to remember getting off. All it did was store like the before and after. So when I went to try and remember back, my memory was too busy storing all the other things that were going on, all the people that might have been looking at me or judging me or what have you at the time, to remember my actual stepping off the bus. So in that sense, it's not that I have a memory issue, but that my memory is always incredibly overwhelmed by my hypervigilance, and half the time not even realizing all the different things I'm focusing on. I'm just so anxious about everyone else around me and what they might do around me, to influence my environment in any way, that I don't take the time to remember these little things, and it's disorienting as hell to feel like you don't remember stuff like this. So just know that if you feel like you have memory issues and you have PTSD, you don't. I mean, you know, you might if you're got other conditions going along with it, but more than anything, it's your hypervigilance and just you're a human. You don't have that much retention capacity. No matter how much you try, you can only remember so much. So when you're all over all the little details that you're afraid of or that are making you anxious, sometimes you can't remember doing certain things even though they did happen. And so the way that I've come to deal with this lack of focus, this constant like mind jumping, is when I'm not depressed, when I can get my brain to focus on something, I'll find a show that keeps me. So for a while there I was watching, well, actually all kinds of stuff. I've been all over the different seasons. I advise Doctor Who, if you hadn't noticed by my intro, as well as House and, well, many other really good things. But anyway, yeah, I found shows kind of good because they're a mundane thing where they'll keep my brain sort of focused on one thing for a little longer than it would otherwise be on its own. A similar idea to reading a book, if you can focus on the words long enough. But when I'm in that really like bouncy, just like changing channels, just constant not being able to focus on anything at all, I often try to actually go outside. I'll go for a walk. Try to just find stimulus to take my mind and occupy it for an extended period of time, because it's really disorienting to have your mind constantly flipping from one thought to another and to never really have any real focus. So yeah, walking around in nature or just going for a walk period is a good one, or like going out in your backyard even is also a good one. And then, well, naps are nice, if going to sleep if you're having a hard time, but if you're in a really hypervigilant state, that can be super hard. So then it's just calming exercises, like I'll take a bath if it's really bad, and just like listen to some music, and my mind's still jumping, but at least my body feels more relaxed, which is nice. And in other cases, I mean, I'm still pretty early in my therapy, so I just keep looking for various different things to catch my attention. I'll be on Reddit, I'll be on Facebook or YouTube, just looking for different videos or different articles or stupid, silly images, things to keep my brain. And if they can't, then I bounce on to something else. And, you know, sometimes I'm not that successful. It's just kind of a day of no concentration, and that's not fun, I'll tell you. But it's definitely not the be-all and end-all of the situation. It's just sometimes that happens. And you have to just kind of work with it and realize that it's not going to be every day. It's just sometimes it does happen. Not fun, but hey, you do what you can. And above all, when it gets really bad, I advise grounding exercises, breathing exercises, having grounding objects, grounding music. I've heard mantras are really good, and doing relaxing things like, you know, taking a bath or going for a walk, stuff like that. Just trying to calm down, because the idea is that your brain is hypervigilant for some reason. So anyways, I hope you found this kind of helpful and a little less rigid than my usual videos. Feel free to comment below about your issues with concentration in regard to PTSD and just general attention deficit, specifically related to having post-traumatic stress disorder. Because as I said, it's not seeming to be something that's very widely covered yet on the internet. So it's definitely worth your time to share your experiences below and try to help anyone dealing with the condition and learning how to cope with it, and just knowing that they're not alone in this. They're not the only one who experiences this. A lot of us go through it, but it's not every day. It just is some of the symptoms that we do experience. And also, please comment below about how you felt about this new thing that I'm trying out, where I'm a little more informal and just kind of sharing my experiences and how I've come to cope with it. If you thought it was in any way useful, share. If you don't, share. Just let me know what you thought. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue this series or not. I'm not even sure what I'm going to call it, but just a new idea. I thought maybe you guys might like to see me a little bit more informally. So I hope you enjoyed, and as always, please join me again next week, where I try again to share a little something I've learned in life.